What's up, all you lunatics? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking into this episode. Today we are out in the garage and I've got a custom worm order that I'm going to be making, and I'm going to show you that color here in a second. But it was pretty cool. Chris Jones from the World's Worst Fishing was talking to this guy and referred him my way because the customer wanted a 4.5-inch worm and Chris didn't have that size worm, so he referred him my way, which is pretty cool. So thank you to Chris Jones. He's got an awesome YouTube channel called World's Worst Fishing. I did a collab with him a while back, and he sent me some swim baits and stuff like that. It was a pretty cool little deal that we did. I did a review on those swim baits, and I still haven't had a chance, unfortunately, to get them out and fish them, which I'm looking forward to doing. It just hasn't happened yet, but I do plan to do that, and I'll probably do some type of a video when that happens. But today we're out in the garage and we are going to be making some pretty cool worms, and like I said, I'm going to show you guys a picture of them in a second. But before I do, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. If you're not new but haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I need all those subscriptions and all those views, and all that really helps the channel to grow, and I really want to grow this thing. So please do that. And also like the video and give me a comment. Let me know what you think about the lunatic name that I'm doing with everybody on my YouTube stuff. I just figured it was something kind of cool that we could all kind of like get in on together. So that's what we're going to be doing from here out. Unless I get a lot of bad feedback, then we won't do it. But for now, we're going to be I'm going to be calling you guys lunatics. So stay tuned for today's video on making these plastics. I got 50 worms to make, and I got 1 mold, so it's going to be 3 worms at a time. It's going to take me a little bit of time, but that's okay. So let's get going. Okay, so that is our worm that we're going to be making today. It's going to be color matching this one. As you can see, it's got like a watermelon kind of a top with some black flake in it, and then a kind of a light pearl color on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to go slow and add some pearl and add some watermelon to both of our different colors slowly, so I can try to get this as close to that as possible. And we're going to be adding a little bit of black flake. It doesn't look like there's too much in there, but it does look like there's a little bit of black flake in there. Okay, so in today's video we got our Do It soft bait crystal clear Plastisol in the soft formula, and we got our measuring cups up to 1 cup of Plastisol on each side, and obviously we need 1 for each color. We have our green pumpkin side and our laminate side. So we're gonna get these in the microwave and get them ready to add some colorant to it. Okay, so while we're waiting for this plastic to get ready to go, I'm gonna go through what I'm using today. This right here is the 4.5-inch El Gaisano mold. This is my laminate block right here, and my dual injector right there. And we are gonna be using the watermelon green X2 colorant along with black hexagonal 0.015 hexagon black flake and some soft baits pearl powder. We're going to be very careful with the powder because a little goes a long way, so we got to be very careful that I don't put too much. So it's going to be a slow process to get that right. Okay, so I think our plastic is ready to go. I'm going to take it out of the microwave. It's going to be hot, so you guys got to be careful when you take it out of the microwave. And we're going to start adding our colorant, and like I said, we're going to use that watermelon green X2 colorant to make our watermelon side. And I'm going to add 6 drops to start off, and then we'll check the color. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to stir it on in, see what our color looks like. The X2 colorant's fairly thick, so a little goes a long way. I don't want this completely see-through, so I think I'm going to have to add a little bit more, but I might add a little bit of the green or the watermelon brown color to just darken it a little bit, because that's really, really green. So I'm going to shake up my watermelon brown a little bit, and then I'll add 2 drops. So I got 6 in there, and then 1, 2. And that might actually be a really good color. Still need to darken it a little bit. So we'll go 2 more drops. So now we got 4 drops of watermelon brown, 6 drops of watermelon green. It's not all the way mixed in yet, but that is a pretty good green color. So the black's gonna darken it up. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that because it feels like a pretty good green color. And then we're gonna do a test run, obviously, the first one we do. So now I'm gonna add some Black Flake. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 1/4 teaspoon measuring cup right here. And I'm gonna dump one in there. And we'll mix the Black Flake in. The Black Flake will darken this whole thing up. So when I was stirring it in a second ago, this Black Flake definitely darkens it up, which I think is right on track with what we're looking for, because in that picture it looked a little bit more watermelon than it did green pumpkin to me. But yeah, so this Black Flake definitely darkened it up, so I think that's a good starting point for our first attempt and seeing where we end up. It might need to go a little bit darker, but I'm gonna do a test run first. And so our next step is going to be this pearl powder. I'm going to be very conservative with the pearl powder. I'm going to make sure I get all my Black Flake out of there. That's good. I'm going to take basically 1/8 of a teaspoon here, put it in there, and then stir it in with a clean thing to stir. I just use these cheap knives I got at Target. And then we're going to stir it in real good. So as you can see, it kind of clumps up, so you really gotta stir it good. And I think that's gonna be plenty of pearl powder. I'm glad I didn't use any more, because I think that 1/8 of a teaspoon is plenty of pearl. So it really pearled it up a lot, which I think is okay. I think that's kind of what we're going for. And then this is gonna get a little bit of Black Flake as well, and it'll darken it just a tad. We're not gonna do quite as much, but we are going to add a little bit. I'm going to do about another 1/8 of a teaspoon of Black Flake, and we'll stir that on in. Yeah, I think that's turning out pretty good. Yeah, so far I'm liking how this is looking. We're going to have to pour our first run of baits and see where we're at and see if we have to make any adjustments. Okay, so we're gonna take our plastic out and go for our first run here. And you always got to pay attention to what side the top of your worm is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these to the back here. And one of the main things you need to remember when you're pouring laminates is to keep your plastisols at the same temperature, because if you don't, they don't end up laminating very well. And one thing you want to do is you don't want them to be super hot when you laminate either, but the main thing is you want to make sure that you draw up your plastic evenly and you have temperatures that are close to the same, and that does a lot of the work for you when it comes to getting your laminates right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to let this cool just a tiny little bit, and then we'll draw up our plastic, and then we'll put this into our mold and see what our worms look like. Okay, so I think our plastic is cool enough. So we are going to get our injector ready to go, put it into our cups, draw up our plastic, and then I'm going to push a little bit out. And then come over to our mold like so. Then you just want to do even pressure as it goes into your mold. Even pressure is key so you don't have one side overpower another. And that felt like it should have laminated well. We'll see here in a second. You want to hold pressure as well, because it kind of keeps the air from getting in there and it pushes some of the air out, and it just makes sure that you end up having a good pour. And we're going to top off our sprue here like that, and then we're going to put our extra back into our cups so we can keep using that same plastic instead of wasting it. And then we'll see what these look like here in a second. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we are gonna open up our mold, see what these worms look like. Hopefully they're pretty close, and they are not. They did not laminate well. They did not laminate the way I was hoping. Actually, they did laminate. I just need to darken. I definitely need to darken up the green, because it did laminate. It's just that clear just dulled it a lot. So we're gonna have to add a little bit more green, and I think we need to add, actually I think the bottom's okay. I think we just need to add more green to our plastic, and I'm gonna do the watermelon brown color so that way we can get it a little bit darker, because that's a little bit more green than I want to. Okay, so we're getting the plastic back out of the microwave, and we are gonna darken this green up. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little bit of brown instead, because I think the brown is gonna darken it up without keeping it as green, because I just want it to go to more of a green pumpkin type color. So we got 3 drops of brown. That ought to make it a little bit darker, a little bit more green pumpkin look to it, which is what we're going for. It's just super green right now, so we just gotta dull that green a little bit. And once that brown works itself in, I think it's actually gonna look a little bit closer to what we're going for. Yeah, I can already tell that it's a lot more brown in there than it was before, which is I think what we are going for with this color. And I actually feel like I need to add just a tiny bit of green to that pearl, because it's so bright, and I just think it needs a little bit of color to it to just kind of dull that pearl a little bit, because in the picture it's not perfectly pearl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some watermelon brown and just put like 1 drop, it was about 2 drops in there, and stir it in. I don't want it to change color too much. I just want it to kind of dull just a tiny bit, and that actually is looking good. That's exactly kind of what I'm going for. Just a little bit, not a lot, but just enough to kind of give it a little bit of a green hue, but still have that pearl to it, because in some of the pictures that I was sent, it did have that pearl, but it had a little bit of green inside that pearl. So I think that's kind of what we're going for, a little bit more there. Okay, so we're gonna get our colors back out here. We're gonna do our second run of baits. I think this is gonna be closer to what we want. I'm gonna stir up this pearl one a little bit more. I think that's actually gonna turn out pretty darn cool. So we're gonna let our plastic cool just a little bit, and then we're gonna draw up our plastic, and we will get these worms going. Okay, so here goes round 2. Let's get our injectors ready to go. Get our plastic drawn up. And then we'll come over to our mold. Nice even pressure. I don't think this one worked. I can already tell by the way it feels. Something didn't go right, so I think this is going to be a bad pour, but we'll see here in a second. Okay, so like I said a second ago, I don't think this one turned out very well. I just didn't feel right when I was pushing the plastic into the mold, but we're going to check it out and see. And actually, I think it turned out better than I thought, but it's still, yeah, it did what I thought it did. So basically, the green pumpkin overpowered the laminate. So you can kind of tell that it did laminate a little bit at the top here, but it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It didn't go in evenly. So that definitely affected the color a lot. And the laminate's not as distinct as I would have liked it to be. So we're going for attempt number 3 on these worms. Looks like I still need to heat this plastic up a little bit more. But hopefully this next run will laminate better, because it definitely didn't laminate how I wanted last time. I think there's enough contrast in these colors that it should show through better than it did last time. Because sometimes when you try to laminate, yeah, because it's totally opposite ends of the spectrum here. But sometimes when you laminate colors that are very similar, it's hard to see that laminate because some stuff bleeds through. But I think that there's enough difference in these two that it should laminate okay. So we're gonna stir this other side in a little bit more, and then we're gonna put these back in the microwave, heat them up, and then we're gonna get going again. Okay, so we're gonna give ourselves one more chance at this. For some reason, I just can't seem to get the plastics to draw up at the same rate. So like one side's getting more than the other, and then when it's going into my mold, it's not laminating like it's supposed to, so it's not even giving me a good idea of what I'm dealing with. So we're gonna give this one more attempt, and if it doesn't work, then we're gonna be back to the drawing board here. So let's draw up our plastic. Okay, that looked like it drew up good, so I'm gonna push some out. Yep, that looks good. Come over to our mold, and we are gonna do even pressure down. That one might have worked. I'm not too confident at the moment just because of the way these other ones have gone, but we're gonna see here in a second. But that one might have worked. That one felt a little bit better, so we're gonna top off our sprue here. Yep, that one looks better for sure. So we're gonna put our extra back in our cups here. If this one turned out okay, then we're gonna make some more, but we're gonna have to just see here in a second. Okay, well, it's time to see how these turned out. So let's open up this mold and see. Hopefully we got something close here. And yeah, we actually did. It's a little bit more green that we need though. I can tell you that right now. This was the closest one we got, but it's definitely not enough of a laminate. Or it's a laminate, I can tell. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's just not quite white enough on the bottom side, but this is the closest I've gotten so far. All right, so in this attempt I added some white into it to try to lighten that color up. I'm not sure that I even like the way it looks right now, but we're gonna make one pour just to see how it looks, because sometimes you just never know until you actually make the worm. So we're gonna make it, see what it looks like, but it just doesn't look right to me right now. But I mean, I already got all this stuff melted and everything, so I'm just gonna give it a shot and see what it looks like here in a second. Okay, so let's draw up this plastic and see how these worms turn out. Draw it up. Come over to the mold. And even pressure down. That one I think did well. You can kind of tell that it laminated okay when you don't have to push down too far, because this is such a small mold that it doesn't take a lot of plastic to fill it. And when I know that I messed up is when I pushed down a lot further. That means it didn't laminate right, or there's air in it, just something wasn't right. And that's usually how I can tell. But when it's a really short push down, that's when I know that I did it right. That actually looks a little bit better than I was anticipating it looking. But we'll see here in a second what the final worms look like. Okay, so let's see what these worms look like. I think these are going to be the closest to the picture yet. And yeah, I definitely think they're the closest ones to the picture. It's still just bleeding through too much. This one actually looks pretty good. It's got that nice pearl bottom to it, the green pumpkin top. That one I feel like is pretty close to the picture. This one too. Actually, the more I look at this, oh, this is the top one right here. This one actually looks okay. It's not as good as the other two, but it looks okay. So I think I kind of got it. It's not exact, but I think it's pretty darn close. But it definitely took a lot of effort to get there, but pretty close. I'm not exactly sure if I'm happy with that or not, but I finally got that laminate to go, and I finally got something pretty darn close to that picture. Okay, so we'll see what this pour ended up looking like. And this one did laminate, and it turned out pretty good. The color's definitely laminated, so we'll put these into the bath. And
You know it laminated well when your sprue laminates good. That's something that, it's always a telltale sign. If your sprue laminates good, then your bait's laminated good.
Well, that was definitely a failure attempt at pouring those worms. I was not able to color match it. I was barely able to get those laminates to look the way I wanted it. I didn't get them to laminate very well. I'm gonna send a picture to the customer that wanted those worms. Basically just tell them that, you know, it didn't work out, and refund the money, and I'll probably still send him the ones that did turn out just for free, just because he had to wait and try to hope that I could make this happen, and obviously I wasn't able to. So in order to do the right thing, obviously I'm gonna refund the money, but I'm gonna also just send him the baits that I was able to make, and if he likes them, he likes them. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It doesn't hurt him at all. I'll just be out a couple bucks on shipping and on all this stuff, but that's what happens sometimes when you go and you try to, you know, color match. It doesn't always work out, and sometimes you end up wasting plastic and all that, and that's just the way it goes in plastic making, bait making. Sometimes you mess up, and I was actually not sure if I actually wanted to post this video on YouTube because, you know, it's kind of embarrassing when you screw up. I mean, that's just the reality of it, but I'm gonna go ahead and post this, obviously, because you guys are watching it right now, because I want you to see that sometimes you do screw up. Sometimes you think you can color match something and you can't. If this was something that I was gonna make myself and I was really trying to color match, I'd just start all over from scratch. But I just don't know that I can get this worm to where the customer wants it, and I want to make sure the customer's happy, and I don't want to take their money if they're not gonna get a product that they're gonna like. So I think it's safer to just send them what I made, refund the money, and go from there. But for those of you that are thinking about doing some of this stuff, selling baits and all that, this is one of the things you need to think about, and sometimes you're gonna screw it up, and sometimes you're gonna end up losing a little bit of money, but in the long run it definitely works itself out. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned from my mistakes. I hope you learned just something from this video, and I hope you enjoyed your time watching it. I appreciate you guys watching it. Please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Please give it a like and a thumbs up, and comment what you thought about the worms that did turn out, if you thought some of the screw ups were actually kind of a cool color or not. But I'd love to hear your opinions, and stay tuned for my next episode, and I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you. See you guys later.